ask a question while everybody's getting settled? How many of you have done a workshop with me before? Wait a minute. I mean, let me do it the other way. How many of you have not? Fresh blood. Okay, one question.
What would you do if you have the animated archetype?
What do you do when you have all of your archetypes?
Not all of them, one.
But they all are. So let me scare you. Allow me to clutter your mind. Every archetype, okay, that's not going to work. Could somebody move that to some place where everyone can see it, but I can work on it, so you figure that's your problem. Okay, so every archetypal, all right, some way, somehow, maybe in the center, so center it, and then you deal with everybody's responses. So, yeah, there. Okay, so every archetypal patterns, think of all these lights as part of the archetypal patterns in the universe, like all the stars. And there's no such thing as a personal star, correct? Right. And all the archetypal patterns are like in the atmospheric orbit of our Earth. And so you live in a neighborhood and you live in a house. Your house is personal. Your neighborhood is sort of personal. Your country is less personal but personal. Agreed? Right? Are you with me? Yeah. Okay. And then as we get into the orbit, there's nothing personal, and yet it is, because it's your orbit. You can't see another. I mean, it's more personal than the orbit of Mars, agreed? And yet it's totally impersonal, agreed? Okay, now, so all of these archetypal patterns are, and look at, there's triangles around these lights, so that's good. So you see that the lights are actually triangled off. So they're not allowed to actually go everywhere, so they're kind of triangled off. So an archetypal pattern is the light shines everywhere, and yet it's also a boundary. So both are true simultaneously. Now that's sort of an antinomial position where you think, how can something be everywhere and yet contained? Because it sounds like opposite positions. But one of the challenges of how you're going to think by the time I'm done with you, if I have to beat you with a dead fish, is that you're going to stop thinking that I have to be right and you have to be wrong. That this is a polarity world. That it's either or, win or lose. No. That's the lowest form of thinking. That's the way a 2-year-old thinks.
And Donald Trump. Sorry.
That's the way the primate thinks. That's the way you think when you're trying to organize your world in your first baby step. What's mine? What's yours? I win. And when you organize your consciousness like that, you can't see anything else, because all you're interested in is dominating. All you're interested in is your way. That's all you're interested in. Your disease can never, ever, 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 ever be healed when you think like that. Because you will never allow truth in. Because there's nothing, a truth is a universal. Gravity is a truth. Gravity. We all will fall if we jump off a building. It doesn't matter what country you're from, how tall you are, how much you weigh. It doesn't matter if you're short, if you're young, if you're old. It doesn't matter. A law, a universal law, is universal. I don't care if you're Buddhist or a Druid or a Catholic or I don't care what you are. You will fall if you jump. The spirituality that we need is a spirituality of mystical law, where it's true, period, end of it. The Tao is true. Buddhism, change is constant. It doesn't matter who you are. If you adhere to something as primitive as, I'm sorry, but I always have to be right, you're going nowhere. You will never resolve a problem. You will always be in anger. Always. There is no option for you. You will always, always be in therapy. And it will always be about, how did they do this to me? You will always be a victim. You will always feel sorry for yourself. The world will always be this awful, mean place. Because you have this is you creating your reality. This is that low way of thinking. Now, why? Eventually, you have to detach from this. Yes, I must. And begin to think on a higher level that says, something's wrong here. I'm taking this whole planet personally. This can't be right. I mean, what am I doing wrong here? It must be me. Because everybody else it must be me. It must be me. So I'm going to give you a model, the simplest model, and simple is always the best. Simple is always the best. So this is you. You are a building. And every floor of the building is a level of your consciousness. Buildings do not move. Once a building is built, once you're born, you are you. Once I was born in the United States, I couldn't be born in Canada. So my building is American. I was born where I was born, Chicago. You were born where you were born. But all the movement is inside of your building. You can move on any of the floors. But now imagine, and this actually happened to me. This is how I had this image came into my head. I was in New York, I was in Manhattan, and I was visiting a friend of mine, an attorney. She has an apartment, she has a penthouse apartment and a tall apartment building, a tall condo building in Manhattan. New York is a very loud city. It's very crowded and it's very loud. And in the summer, it's very, very loud. And it's hot. And it's very hot. And the thing about New York that you don't experience I've never experienced it in any European city, is because it's this tight island and the buildings are very tall and it's very hot. The concrete gets very hot and it doesn't cool off. So, after weeks and weeks of very hot weather, when you're walking on that concrete, it is hot and your feet swell. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but mine do, right? And so your feet are swollen, and then in New York, you do have some of the rudest cab drivers ever. Yo, move! This kind of thing. And I don't know why people think when nobody can move, why do they think hitting the horn is going to help? But there's no place to go, right? And they're all, yo, move! And it's this, and so you have this noise constantly, and the air smells horribly, and they're working on the sewer, and am I giving you, right? Yeah? Okay, and another thing about New York is that they don't have these, in these tall buildings, the city was built and they don't have alleys in a lot part of the central part of Manhattan. So they don't have the back alleys, so all the trash is in the front. It's all in the front of the buildings. So it's all baking in the sun. And it's like, so it's this way and it's that way and it's loud, and I love that city. Oh, I love that city. It's got the best restaurants in the theater, but that's not the point. So when you're walking down that town in the summer and your feet are swollen and it's hot, it's so hot, and it's so loud, you think, oh, what am I doing here? But then you have tickets too, you know. All right, so I went to see her. I get in an elevator. I go all the way up to the top. I get out, and she has in the penthouse, and this is so New York, if you have even a 10 square, 5 square, 2 square foot of outside balcony, this is precious land. And people will put out plants, and they'll put out anything just to have greenery. Well, she had, I don't know, maybe 10 feet, you know, maybe from here to that line, you know, not, in my opinion, not much, but in hers, right? So she had, you know, 2 chairs and a table, and she had iced tea and this. So we're sitting there, and what I realized was I couldn't hear anything down there. Number 2, the air was clean. Number 3, as the evening came down, I could see the lights of New Jersey. Now that's not pretty, but I mean, the lights of New Jersey. But I could see the George Washington Bridge light up. And I thought, that's really beautiful. I could see the sunset. I saw the Hudson River. And I thought, this is really beautiful. Now this was not the New York from down here. Dirty, loud, smelly. Now, this is your first chakra. This is the first level of your consciousness. Dirty, smelly, loud, crowded. And you can't see anything when you are in the first level of yourself. In the first level of yourself, in the first level, you can't even imagine that you have an archetype pulling the strings. That something other than you, that there's a symbolic power, a symbolic pattern, an impersonal pattern that has authority over you. You can't even imagine it. And if I said to you, I'm telling you, you have a penthouse in you, and from the penthouse, let me tell you, I can see a river. And if I gave someone your address, and someone interviewed the 2 of us, and said, what's the view? And I said, oh my God, I see a river in the sky, and I see stars at night, and it's beautiful and beautiful and beautiful. You would say, what the hell are you talking about? It is filthy and crowded, and I saw rats by the trash and blah, 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 blah. And nobody would believe we had the same address. And that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. If you talk to someone living on the first floor, they wouldn't know what the heck we're talking about. That is a fact of that address. A total fact. That's a fact in you. If you talk to your first floor, it wouldn't know anything about the way your soul could see the world. Not a thing. Not a thing. Which is why when you begin the ascent spiritually in you, you will sabotage yourself. You will do that. Because there is a part of you that knows, just like you know that every single floor in your condominium building costs more money. And you know it. And you know that with every floor, your view of the neighborhood is going to change. You're going to see everything differently. Yes, you will. And nobody down here cares to know it. You will lose friends because they're not interested in your expanding vision any more than you're interested in their expanding vision. You don't want to hear it, and you have to remind yourself that you are no different than anybody who's gone before you. You have to get out of yourself and humble up. Nobody is interested in your journey. Stop thinking you should have an audience for your life. Stop it. Grow up. Now, in every floor, you're going to get a different view of who you are and what your life looks like. And it's a profound, profound difference. You're going to see that there are, in fact, your world is enormous with every time, and it's going to scare you. Because you're going to see, oh my God, I'm smaller and my world is bigger. And that's going to terrify you. You're going to realize I need more to survive. I need to be more to survive. Not to have more, but to be more. I'm going to have to outfit the world behind my eye. Now, where people make their errors is that they think they need more stuff to survive. It is not about stuff, people. It's about what's behind your eye that matters. It's about inner space, not outer space. The inner space and outer space are our two new frontiers. But if you go into your inner self and you take the path that says, why am I so weak and wounded? You will never get out of there. That's an endless labyrinth of pain and, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me. And let me tell you, some people have had a hell of a bad time. And maybe they're still having hell, but you can't stay there. You can't stay there. You cannot stay there. And you cannot say, my way of helping you is to say, well, I'll tell you what. You have had a hell of a bad time, and I'm just going to leave you there. Find yourself a cozy place to sit and spend the rest of your life feeling sorry for yourself. Or why don't you just find a support group? Get yourself a couple of good pillows and a big bowl of popcorn. Because that's how you're going to see the rest of your life, through popcorn and pillows. Because nobody's going to make it better for you. Nobody's going to undo your past. Nobody. And here's what's true. Nobody owes you a good childhood. Nobody. Somehow or other, you're going to have to get some things straight in your head. None of us was owed a good childhood. None of us was owed love. None of us. Zero. Nobody. We're dealt the hand we're dealt. And some of us were dealt nothing but deuces. And that sucks. And now what are we going to do about it? Some were dealt aces. Some got a full house. Some got a bad poker hand. I said, a couple of times, I said to somebody, and some they'll say, I just want to know why. Why what? Why it was so bad for me. Okay, well, let's play it out. It was so bad for you because it was. Here's another reason. It was so bad for you because God picked you out and said, blah, 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 blah. How's that? It was so bad because, are we on fire?
I just checked
thinking it's done a bit strange, that camera.
Well, blow it out. Because I'm not in the mood for a fire, Okay, thank you. Or here's another reason, because you're a bad person. That one stopped her. And I said, or maybe you're a good person. Or maybe you're carrying the pain of 30 other people who can't. Oh, I don't like that. Well, I said, what reason can I give you that you do like? I said, give me a reason that you'll like. And she went blank. And I said, so here's the truth. There is no reason. So now what are you going to do? Chase your tail the rest of your life? The truth is you're angry at God. And you want a brand new life. You want to reboot. And it's not going to happen. So what are you going to do? You're not going to play. You're not going to play. You're not going to live your life because you didn't have the childhood. I said, you're 41 years old. Stop it. Who are you punishing? Do you think God's going to come along and finally say, all right, you win. Pouty, pouty. Pouty, pouty. Pouty, pouty. I'll make it all better now. Which is what people do. Pouty, pouty. It's not going to happen. What's a spiritual practice? Recognizing it's not going to happen. Like, this is not working. Now, what does work? What does work is saying, this is not working. Okay, let's try something else, which is I need to get on with it. I need to get on with realizing this planet is tough. And somehow I've drunk some rotten Kool-Aid that says I'm so exceptional that I should have been the exception to some rules. That said I should have had an easy time, and somehow God didn't get that message. And therefore I don't believe in that God. Now, as we rise up here and we get rid of these stories, eventually we get rid of ourself and we step out of these stories we tell ourselves by saying, where did this story come from? Where did this particular story come from? Where did that story come from? Where did this idea that I should marry that kind of person? Where did this idea that I should not have that kind of sad experience? Where did this idea come from that I should never be lonely, or this or that, or this or that, or that I should never get sick, or that this should never happen, or that should never happen? I got the shock of my life before I came here. The shock of my life. Last week I was teaching in Vancouver for a week. I was home for 4 days, and then and now I'm here. And in those 4 days, I learned that someone I have treasured for 22 years. And for me, he is one of two true, genuine healers I have met in my entire life. Genuine, gifted, blessed, genuine healers. He healed me. After me going to 40 people around the world who could not help me. And I just learned that he's blew up with 4th stage lung cancer and cancer in his spine at only 56. And he is a Qigong master, an acupuncturist, a physician, the most gifted. I've sent over 100 people to him. How can that be? Right? How can that be? His diet is perfect. His Practice is perfect. And the only way you can deal with this personal is to get totally impersonal, is to climb up here as fast as you can. Up here. Because if you go down here and say, why him? You will drown under the grief. You'll drown under it. You'll drown. So what stories? You have to run up as fast as you can and sit in the penthouse and look across the table at a soul you love down to your own soul, a soul you admire down to your, and hold the hand of this soul and say, is it your time? Are you carrying so much that you have to leave? Is that what this is? But to ask a personal, to ask it at the personal, is to never receive an answer that can satisfy you. The archetype of the healer. And maybe he's healed as much as he can in one life. Now, as you rise, you start seeing yourself through your own archetypes. You start seeing yourself. And you start stepping out of your problems, and maybe it's one at a time. And you start taking on your life through, while all of these archetypes, while the lights of all of them are shining on you, still there are ones that are directly ahead, directly above. These are the ones, the 12 directly above, that come down and have the most influence on your life. Like we're all somehow touched by each of them, but there are some stars that are very remote. But then there are the ones that are directly above. Directly above me, I see the teacher. Directly above me, I see the mystic. But the pirate is way, way out there. Way, way out there. You see, the Olympian is way, way out there. Okay. I'm sure it's in my, but, whew, right? Okay? So, but it's there. And one at a time, you come up with crises, you come up with issues, you come up with mysteries in yourself that can't be solved at the personal level. The personal, let's say that these floors, these are all personal floors, where you take everything personally, where you think the world is yours, because that's as far as you can see, where you think it's where you speak like this is my neighborhood. This is my hood. And then finally, you get a condo on a floor where you can't talk that way anymore. You can't say, this is my New Jersey, because you see it. You can't say, this is my Hudson River. You finally are looking at territory where the word my can no longer be used. You finally can see past the power of personal vocabulary. Are you with me there? Personal vocabulary now has to be dropped. It doesn't have the power to describe what you now can see. And that's true in yourself. You are now able to perceive in yourself experiences where in order for you to see them, you cannot use personal vocabulary. You can no longer say, you wounded me. You is a personal word. In order for you to heal or understand that wound, you have to now explore it outside of personal vocabulary. You've gone as far as you can now with personal language. You have to now shape it in impersonal language. It now has to be impersonal for you to go any further. You now can never again say my, you, use another person, deserve, blame, entitled. All personal words cannot go above that floor. Any word that triggers an emotional response cannot go above that floor. You simply had an experience, neutral word. An event, an experience, a situation. You may never use an emotional word above that floor. You now engage vocabulary of the soul. And now you reshape it. Now you enter it. You will sabotage this. You will absolutely sabotage it. Because in shifting this, you shift so much of your relationship to your power and your own world. And you know that in shifting your relationship to one significant experience, a whole lot of others are going to shift that fast. And you then empower an archetype. And you say, what? You look at a story that you tell yourself. In order to do this, you start realizing, what do I tell myself that I let myself do this? And now you're talking to an archetype. Where does this come from? Where do I get off thinking that I'm always right? What's this string tied to? What voice talks to me that I'm always right? I'm pulling, and all of a sudden you have self-righteous, and all of a sudden you have, look at that, I've got the judge. What am I judgmental? This is the judge archetype. Looky. Let's go out to dinner, you and me. And you have this huge judge. Well, I thought everybody else was judgmental. No. Well, you start having to deal with you, not everybody else. This is you now. And you realize, where do I get off to? What are the stories I tell myself? What are the excuses I tell myself? That I get to be so judgmental, but everybody else. And I always think it's everybody else. First level projection 101. So that's how it's done. That's how it's done. Now we start the excavation. Well, this is how it's done. Are you with me here? That's how it works. That's what truth is about. And this is just you. You start taking on concepts about how is this universe created. Imagine that you start dealing with ideas. Imagine that you are all candle makers, and I have to tell you that the world of electricity has come, and you don't know it. And I have to break it to you gently. That everybody's using electricity, but you don't know it. So you're still trying to manufacture candles. And you're still talking about how do we manufacture, how do we market them, how do we get them to everybody. So you still think everybody's using candles? But I know everybody's using electricity, and all of you are going to go bankrupt. So I have to introduce you to a high-level truth, that era is over with. And you have to shift gears. You have to redo your economics. You have to come to terms with two things. The world's not flat, and candles are over. And I know for a lot of you, those two ideas are going to be shocking. Ultimately shocking. You've based your whole economy on it. You've based your maps on it. Some of you are cartographers. It's going to be shocking. You have sea monsters. People fall off the edge of the earth. There's a new truth in town. So this is what happens when, as we start this journey of exploration, what happens is that we start to bring down our reality that we have clung to, idea by idea. Well, if this isn't true, what about this? Well, if this isn't true, what about this? What about that? What about this? This is what spiritual direction is all about. What is this inner landscape? And if I don't believe this, what if I believe that? What if this? Now, in a sense, you are already making this profound journey. All of you are. And part of the way you're experiencing this journey is that, and this is also, I believe, the consequence of our entering this new age, if you will, this age of energy, is that we are now multisensory. When people are taught, and I don't know if they still are, but if they are still taught, if children are still taught that we have, I remember being taught that we have 5 senses. We have hearing and seeing and smelling and tasting. I don't know what kids are taught anymore. But if they're still taught that the human being has 5 senses, that is a bold-faced lie. That is so archaic. We have multiple senses now. And children should be taught that we are fundamentally multisensory. That we have intuitive intelligence, spiritual intelligence, intellectual, emotional, physical. That we are a multi-intelligent creature. And that these multi-systems of intelligence need to be woven together like a fine cloth. And that when they are separated, when they are not integrated, that it causes trouble in the psychic field. It causes trouble in our psyche. It causes trouble in our perception. And that trouble manifests itself in the immune system, in the psychological system, in our health system. That we fall into what we might call psychological mystical disorder. That in fact, we are experiencing a new type of epidemic that I totally believe that so much of what is listed as psychological depression is in fact a spiritual crisis. That in fact people are not psychologically depressed. They are in a spiritual low point, a spiritual depression, but it's not recognized because, one, people have a more classical understanding of spirituality and spiritual that needs to be done away with. They still think in traditional terms of spirituality instead of natural or divine organics, the way we need to understand spirituality now. It needs to be understood in an organic way, in a way that is natural to your body, your system, your blood, your bones, and the way that the organic nature of the divine emerges in you with or without the support system of what you think of as a religion. The nature of your soul is such that it is organic. It is organic. Your soul's consciousness is organic. And it is like on a timer. And it's going to kick into gear in you because it is an intuitive system. It is a wholly intuitive, I mean Holy. It is a wholly intuitive system that kicks into you on a schedule, as I'll talk about tomorrow, beginning, well, maybe tonight. I keep forgetting we come back here. It kicks in, and it begins to, not unlike the way your conscience kicks in at age 7, and puberty at a certain age, and these cycles of life kick in a natural maturation process. And in that same way, your soul kicks in a type of consciousness that activates, and part of it indeed is conscience. That whole sense that there is a right and a wrong, a good and an evil, a way of seeing the world that says I have to protect myself, and I have to have a sense of how I use my soul, what I animate in terms of my choices, that my choices have consequences, that when I make a choice, I set my soul in motion. That this world, my world, is full of empty mastacholi noodles. That when I make a choice, I breathe my energy into something and I animate it. Nothing is for free in this world. You can't talk like, well, I have free will, and then not get that your will has just animated something. And you're attached to that something for the rest of forever. Those are the rules of the game down here. Those are the rules of the game. You make a choice, there's a consequence. And just for the fun little exercise, go to bed at night and say, I wonder where the end of this consequence is of this choice I just made. And try it with something fun, like eating a hot dog. Let me see, I ate that hot dog, it goes through me, comes out, and then it goes back into nature, and then something grows, and then something eats. There is no end. Because one of the laws of energy is that energy cannot be destroyed. There is no end to any choice. It simply remanifests itself. This is what it means to really be conscious. I make a choice, it's going to get recycled. It's going to get recycled. I have to become conscious of everything I do. And the only thing that helps out that gargantuan truth is that I better pray. I better stay conscious. I better live in some kind of mantra that says, hover over me, God, because you really have given me a lot of power. You've really loaded me up. I am nothing but power. And it's not power to click my heels together and create wealth. And can I have more? It's how a 2-year-old prays. Can I have more cereal? It's like, whoa. I am so creative that if you truly truly think, what has wiped you out? What has made you weak and fragile? What? It's not someone kicking you in the gut. What has paralyzed you? What has caused you to not live your life full? What? Someone slapping you? No. Someone said this. You'll never amount to anything. A couple of words did it. A couple of words. And you've been knocked down. Feathers did it. Feathers. feathers. Took your backbone out. I don't love you. Feathers. You're fired. Feathers. Took your backbone out. That's all. Feathers. That's all. Oh dear. Feathers. It took your backbone out. That's all it took. You would come to therapy with me? What you would see is a basket of feathers. Pick your feathers. Words. Took your backbone out. Feathers. It's not easy to hear those words, but they're feathers. They're not worth your life. They're not worth your life. Neither is the person who said them. They're feathers. Feathers come from ducks. I want you to picture a duck saying those words to you. Next time you hear those words, I want you to see a duck saying those words. You understand me? That's how you do it. I don't love you. Okay, I can deal. I can deal with that. You'll never amount to anything. And you, oven. Okay. Dinner. Dinner. Okay. Freezer. 6 months. Okay. Do you have any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
You say we should rise in the apartment.
Yeah.
I'm curious, can you explain a little bit more who is rising up? Like you are locked in a view. Who is
Locked
rising?
in a what, please?
Who is rising above the standpoint you have, the perspective you have? How do you see that? So if I grow, who is growing? Because I have a feeling which is very limited. Who in me is growing above it? Can you explain a little bit?
I hope so. I'll give it my best shot. If you had asked me that question any time before 1945, I would have given you a Freudian answer probably and said your ego. But since then, and I would say probably as a result of entering the nuclear age, combined with the phenomenon that we've become an interior dwelling people more than any other time in the history of civilization. We've become obsessively interested in ourselves. We've become obsessed with self-discovery, with self-healing, with the significance of everything we say, and with what's said to us. We need to be spoken to in special ways, handled in special ways. And when we get into a new relationship, we have to make sure the other person understands everything that's happened to us so they know the rules of how to approach us, how to handle us, everything. Now, this has never happened to human beings before. And out of this, we have kind of evolved a hybrid ego that is a little bit different than our basic ego and not quite anything near the soul. It's a hybrid, and we call it the inner self. And that inner self is kind of a way station, a in-between being that serves as our intimate other. We talk to our inner self. We confer with our inner self. We oftentimes say, I got it on the inner. My inner self tells me. So we think of it as an intimate other. We oftentimes use the plural and say, we need space. Who? I only see one of you. Well, my inner space and me. My inner self and me, rather. We oftentimes recognize the inner self psychically. We move in with somebody, and then we say, God, Jesus, we need space here. My inner self, right here. So when you say, who? It's this part of us that is a very commanding part of ourself, because our self, our mind that we also dialogue with, the conflict part, the part we try to resolve, that our inner self is in dialogue with. That part that can't tell the truth. The part of us that can't come out. The part of us that will say, I got it on the inner. Because it has to go through the inner, because it can't directly speak. So there's this thin line between the courage to be able to say something directly. So it has to make up a route. Are you hearing me here?
I'm not sure.
Are the rest of you? Okay, so the inner self is kind of a, how do you know yourself inside?
That's a good question. I'm confused about this.
How, describe your inner, who's the I? Describe the I you're talking about.
But that you speak a lot about you to us, and I'm always wondering which kind of you do you mean?
Well, what part are you hearing? What are you understanding the you? When I'm saying you, tell me what you are relating to.
I would say my name.
Okay, and what is that attached to in you?
It's.
Do you have feelings when I talk?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so it's an emotional nature.
Right.
So you're attached to your emotional nature, and do you comprehend what I'm saying?
Yes, but there's also a kind of consciousness of it,
Okay.
and that's much more impersonal, what you say.
Right, right. Okay, so these are the compounds, these are the ingredients of the you I'm talking about. Okay, so it's, let's say the ingredients, the alchemy is made up of what you understand, what you feel, and so that's a you, okay? Now beyond, but it's, would you say that you is very rational?
I don't have the feeling my growth is coming from this you.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Would you say this you is a very rational thinker?
It's quite rigid. I don't know whether
Right,
it's
it's rigid.
rational. Yeah.
Okay, rigid is rational.
Okay.
Okay, now, there's another part of you that is in conflict with this part, that would like to not be rigid. That is the part that I would describe as the core of your soul. Your soul is opposite, the exact opposite of this rigid self. And that part that, why do you think you are so afraid of not being rigid.
But like I see the I is really resisting a lot of things. So the opposite of my I is really resisting this rigid point
Right,
of
that's
view.
what I'm saying. I'm
But
asking
it's,
you.
in my opinion, it's still the ego. And I have the feeling my growth comes from something bigger, which is really, in spite of all my resistance, I'm growing.
Right, right.
And I don't like it, but in the end, if I'm there and I look back, then I think, whoa, there's some magic in my life, which is so much bigger than I
right.
am.
Right.
And I get more and more the feeling that I cannot rise this building, and still I'm
Yes, you are.
rising this
That's
building.
what I'm saying to you. The
Yeah.
soul has a path that you're on in spite of yourself.
But you say we should, and I don't have the feeling I can follow this command because it's happening in its own time.
I see. Okay. So let's that rigid word. Okay, let's. We're saying the same thing, and you are rigidly grabbing words. Okay, so let me put it this way: the soul has you on this path. Remember, I said you're all on this path automatic. So that's how it works. Even if you didn't want to rise, you're going to do that. Right. Okay. So when I say you should, I don't mean you better. I don't mean it that way.
But I'm really curious. This is happening in my life, and I'm often wondering, can I, as an I, can I facilitate this? Can I make it more easy? Because often I have resistance, but is there a way that the I, the ego, can really help a little bit that this goes easier? That's what I often wonder for myself.
Yeah. Wait, I would prefer to have that question asked when we come back, because we have so little time.
That's okay.
But I want you to ask that question, but not with a few minutes before we break for dinner, because I don't want to answer that inappropriately or sloppy or messy, because it's such a significant question. It's how do we, and when we start the spiritual journey, that's what the spiritual path is about, is the conscious journey to pebbles at the well. How do I start to drop pebbles in my inner well and do this consciously? What I will say is, what I realize is the inner journey where I have seen people falter is they've tried to do it with their mind. And you can't do that. You simply can't do that. You can't go to God with your mind. It won't work. You'll get bored. You will sleep. You'll fall asleep in my class. You will do, and who does that? But you can't do that. You can't go to heaven through your mind, if you want to just put it in that kind of. Even the mystics would say, turn it off. You turn it off. And this is why, miracles are irrational. They are events that the mind can't explain, because that's the way this heaven wants to work. It doesn't want you to be able to explain it. It doesn't want you to, of course it's going to baffle you. Because that's the way the mind, that's the way heaven's designed the system. You will never explain God. You will never explain a miracle. It's the whole point. It's the whole point of the journey, is you choose sides to trust. Either you trust the impossible or you don't. But in the trusting, stop asking for proof. Stop it. Either you align yourself and get that that's the way it works, so that when you say, God help me, you don't say, but here's how. You don't do that. And that, by the way, is what surrender is. Surrender is not like in the Alcoholic Anonymous program where they say, oh, I give up, I surrender, I've so messed up my life. You have messed up. What it is admitting it. But surrender is when you recognize, I am so powerful, I don't want to screw this up. Take over. Take over. Use this power. Don't let me screw it up. Don't let me hurt anybody. Don't let me do anything. Tell me what you want me to do. Direct, work through me. Have it all. That's what surrender is. Surrender is saying, God, help me, and I don't care how you do it. I do not care. I trust whatever happens, and don't look back and don't criticize, and don't sit there and say, I don't like this. If that's the porridge in front of you, you eat it and you say thank you. Because it could be loaded with vitamins, and who cares if you don't like what it tastes like? Snap out of your pettiness. Humble up, grow up, and look at the system like this life is not designed to hurt you. You're not that special. Life by nature, by its design, is designed to keep you alive. Your body is, the structure of your life is, you have to cooperate with that truth. Everything about your life and everyone in it, even though they don't know it, is designed to help you. It's not designed to make you happy. Romance is not built into the system, so stop thinking like a schoolgirl or a romance novelist. Stop it. This is the basics of life survival. Life is designed to help you survive, to help you make it, to help you get through. It is not about responding to your self-pity. You want to feel sorry for yourself? There's nothing in nature. There's nothing in nature that's going to respond to that. So you're on your own. You want to look at the system and you want to say, okay, this is hard, help me out. Boom, all systems work. You utter a prayer, get me through this, help me out. You have more help than you will imagine. But if you stop and you say, why me? Why me? Not allowed. That's not how you pray. You pray, get me some help and get it here fast. Pray like you're crazy. Pray like you expect that help now. Now. I need it now. Do you hear me? Now, right now. I don't care how you get it here. Get it here. That's how you pray. And you expect it and it shows up. Don't you ever doubt. You pray like a warrior. And you risk everything. I don't care. What do you want to take? My car, take it. I don't care. I need help now. You don't barter. There's no such thing as heaven coming down and saying, I'll answer the prayer if you give me your bank account. Stop thinking like an idiot. Don't pray like you're frightened. Pray like heaven pours miracles, because that's how it is. I don't know who told you that stuff. Oh no, I can't pray like I'm crazy because God will take my bank account. What the hell does God need your money for? Are you crazy? The universe owns everything. Snap out of it. You're not that wealthy. Even, Jesus, how people think, oh my God, save me. Really, honestly, humans really can give me such a headache. Do you have any last questions before I let you go? Yeah.
Just picking up on your point about...
Yeah, wait, I think there's a microphone en route.
Thank you. So just picking up on your point about not taking things personally.
Yeah.
The way I've understood it is that you don't react with emotion. And I was thinking about if I was told a loved one was going to die,
Yeah.
I would really struggle to not react with emotion. So therefore, I'm trying to understand,
Right.
to
Okay.
get to the penthouse level,
Right.
how is the goal to get to a place of just accepting everything as it is?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's not about, thank you for that question. What I mean by that, and I would like all questions to clarify points like that, so I appreciate that question, because I can't really support anyone leaving here with that kind of disclarity, so it's really important that you ask me those questions. It's not about not feeling anything, my God. I have family members dying now, I'm crushed. It's about forming the thought that this only happens to me. This only happens, why God, why is this happening to me? That's the narrative that you can't have. That you're devastated. Go, yeah, absolutely. That this is breaking your heart. Absolutely. But that further narrative that you're the only one suffering like this is where you get into trouble. Now, is that clear? That's where you get into trouble. That you're the only one who's ever lost a brother. That you're the only one suffering. You're not allowed that. That you're the only one that's lost a child. That somehow your loss is much more painful than those parents who lost their children. Now, I have to say that these deaths that parents suffer from kids in gunshots and these ugly, ugly, violent deaths, I don't know. That's a category of grief and rage, and I would not speak to those parents the way I'm speaking right now. I would have to put them in a category that exists on its own. It's not the same as a parent losing a child from every one of the parent adults in my family. Every one of them has lost a child. Everyone. And all the kids in my family who've died have died of illnesses. They've died of cancer, they've died of heart disease, they've died of, So we've mourned our children. And there's an organic process to the loss of a child with illness. The hospitals that you go to, the 24/7 care that we all, so that when the moment comes, as grief-filled as it is, but somehow that sense of unbelievable social, moral, ethical, ugly injustice from a bullet is not there. Do you understand? You're spared that nightmare. I don't know how I would talk to them. So their story, I don't even want to deal with them. I know that going into, so their grief, if they said that grief that my family's experienced or your family is different, I would have to say it is, and I don't even know how to deal with that. Do you see what I mean? I don't know how to frame that. This is a new phenomenon of this constant murder of children. So, but I do know still that the experience of getting personal about experiences is lethal. It's lethal. That deciding that somehow heaven has singled you out, either for good or for bad, of thinking that you are exceptionally special in some way, or exceptionally perfect, or singled out for exceptional suffering. Anytime you single yourself out, you're going to suffer a consequence of that. Because you'll expect heaven to organize the laws of the universe in a way that's different around you. And what is a miracle? Here's the thing you have to understand. What's a miracle? A miracle is the rare event When the order of the universe, the laws, are bent just for you, for a certain experience, like in healing an illness, that an unhealable illness is healed just for you. That the laws ruling that illness, this cancer is never healed, it's always terminal, it's always blah, 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 blah. This blindness is never healed, ever. This back, you can never walk again with that spine, it's been broken from the neck down. But in this one case, somehow, that spine was laced back together during the night. And they can't explain it. In this one case, those laws of never were suspended. And the angels came, and they took her out of her body, and they wove the spine together, put her back in. The laws were suspended just that one night, for that one moment. That's what's called a miracle, the suspension of natural order, so that something totally supernatural, mystically natural could happen. When we tell ourselves we are extraordinary, we think that the laws of the universe should be bent for us all the time. And when they don't, what we do is we bend them for ourselves. We think we can live outside the law, but because we can't bend the law, we break the law. We become lawbreakers. We say, oh, this law doesn't apply to me. This law doesn't apply to me. I don't have to do this because that's for ordinary people. I don't have to show up for this meeting, that's for ordinary people. I don't have to adhere to this law. I don't have to listen to this person. I don't have to take orders from this person. I don't have to cooperate with this. I don't have to do this because I'm special. And my way of showing specialness is I don't have to cooperate. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. I could break the law. I could do this. I could do that because I'm special. I have to be first because I'm special. I have to do this because I'm special. So instead of heaven bending the laws, I have to break them. And I will be a lawbreaker. That's why government officials are always criminals. Because they become lawmakers and thus lawbreakers. Okay, dinner time.